Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with an interesting type of video. As you can probably see from the title and description of this video, this is a podcast, which is not something I've actually put up on my channel yet. I have talked in some of my videos about the podcast that I do for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com. That is the Avatar Online Podcast, and yeah, basically I decided to do a little bit of a test run with this podcast. This is obviously our first Korra Roundtable podcast, which are just special podcasts we do to review every new episode of Korra. So obviously Book 3 Change started yesterday, and I just decided that this is probably one of the better podcasts that I could do to actually put up on my channel as probably the best showcase of what we do basically every week on the podcast. So the podcast that you're going to hear in a few minutes when I stop doing this intro is going to be the basically Korra Roundtable for the first episode of Book 3, and it's going to be myself plus 3 other members of the site Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, and we're just going to talk about the episode. It's kind of a recap style thing where we go through, give a quick recap on the scene, we discuss the scene, and move on and stuff like that. And the main thing I want to get out of this is just that, if you guys really like the idea of me putting these podcasts up on my YouTube channel, in addition to them being on iTunes, Stitcher, and MP3 on the site, I'll probably keep doing it every week. But if no one's really too interested in the YouTube version of it, it's probably a little bit too much work for me to just put it out there for just like a couple of people. But if it's popular, it's definitely something I could do. So please let me know if this is something you want to see more regularly on my channel, because as I said, this is a weekly podcast. I've been doing it on the site for like 2.5 years now, and I would really like to see it kind of grow a little bit more. But please, after you've finished watching this podcast, let me know in the comments if you want to see more of these on my channel. Hello Avatar fans, and welcome to the next episode of the Avatar Online Podcast. This is going to be our first Korra Roundtable for Book 3 Change, and this one's going to be for K301, A Breath of Fresh Air, the opening episode of Book 3 Change. We're recording this episode on June 28th, 2014, and as usual, I am your main host, Morgan Airspeed Prime. Joining me first on this podcast is Troy Trojan People from the forums.
Hello, other people.
Also joining us is Kelly, Gemini530 from the forums.
Hi, everyone.
And last is Greg2B from the forums.
What's up, everyone?
Excellent. So, as you probably heard at the very start of this podcast, you heard a new intro to the Korra Roundtable, and you're also going to hear a new outro at the end. So, as usual, I just edit them slightly based on the previous version to add in some new stuff from the previous season, and that's how they work. I'm not doing completely new intros and outros, just edited slightly. But before we get into the roundtable for A Breath of Fresh Air, we actually have some news to talk about, and we're mainly only doing this because there's one big bit of news that we've been kind of waiting for a very long time, and that has been that a Legend of Korra video game has been announced. This video game is going to be made by Platinum Games for console and Webfoot Technologies for 3DS. It's going to be a downloadable game, I believe, just for console. It's going to cost $15. Apparently the length is going to be 4 to 5 hours. It's going to be a third-person fighting game for console, and it's going to be a strategy fighting game for 3DS. Cell-shaded animation kind of style in-game, but with traditionally animated cutscenes by Titmouse Animation, who did the animation for the Avatar Unaired Pilot and the intro to Avatar The Last Airbender as well. We've got a few hands-on accounts from sites like IGN and GameSpot and stuff like that, and by all accounts it seems like a pretty good downloadable game. It's going to be out fall 2014. I think the only playable character, at least in the console version, is going to be Korra, and I think you can control the other characters in the DS version. In terms of story, it's set between Book 2 and 3, with the story written by Tim Hedrick from the show, and it looks set to resolve some sort of form of chi blocker issues since they're enemies in the game. But Kelly, what are your thoughts on this, a video game at last announced?
This is really cool because, I mean, it's cool and it's cool for two reasons. One, because we actually finally got, like, actual legitimate, like, Korra video game, something that Avatar got, like, every season. So I'm like, it took long enough, you know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, cool, so they actually have a video game. And the second reason is that it's probably not going to suck, because and I hate to say that, because, like, it's like some of them were actually decent, like like, some of the Avatar games were decent, but they also were like, they were made by THQ. The things that make the people that make all the things based on TV shows. And it's like, no, but this is gonna be good, because this is made by a company that made Bayonetta. Like, this is the hands that it's in are very good hands. And this doesn't seem like a cheap thing to do. This isn't like, we want money, so we're gonna make this game. It actually feels, though, because they got a really good studio to work on it, and it's not a full game, it's like, we're gonna make it like a short story that's actually in between book 2 and book 3, and, like, it seems more like something that is actually gonna tell a story, and not some, like, horrible rehashing or kind of telling the story but not really thing that Avatar kind of did. So I'm really looking forward to this a lot. I'm surprised. I thought it was just gonna be, Korra game, and now it's like, oh, actual Korra game.
Yeah, I also think
you can go, Greg.
Okay. Yeah, I also think it's going to be really good. I mean, from everything I've been hearing about it, it sounds like the gameplay is pretty spot on, and at least according to the IGN, it also will be on the PC as well, which is pretty good for me since I have a PC. I don't have any of the newer consoles or whatever. So that's pretty good for me. And I mean, from the accounts of the actual, like, gameplay, it sounds like it'll be pretty good. I mean, although it does sound somewhat that'll be like sort of like the third person, like just almost sort of hack and slash, but it does seem like it does have like at least like a good flow of movements, and like you can actually do like decent combos and stuff, which will actually be pretty interesting, since I mean that's always cool to be able to control like someone's bending power in like an interesting way. So that'll be interesting to see sort of how that flows and whatnot. And it does look pretty good overall, I would say. Like, I like the whole cell shading style and whatnot, and the company, the game developers have done like some shell shading style games in the past, so they do have experience with that. So it looks overall that it'll be really good. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it being like a platinum game, I don't know what that means, but platinum, like, I take it like a company can't call themselves platinum without actually making decent games. So, yeah, I don't have a gaming console, but what Greg said, hopefully it'll be available for PC. But it's just good that we actually have a game, because, Nickelodeon hasn't, like, been treating Korra like it's like an amazing, like, show, but, obviously Nickelodeon pretty much would have had to approve the game. So, and I just like that they're doing that. And really just the fact, THQ went out of business, so they must have really, like, pushed some buttons to get this game, like, to get this cooperation between the two companies that, I don't think was pre-made, so really makes me excited.
Yeah, just some extra details. Yeah, the console, everything is coming to is PC, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, 3DS, not Wii, not Wii U, not normal DS, so that's a little bit disappointing. But otherwise, yeah, it seems pretty cool, downloadable game. There's not really been any confirmation if the 3DS version is going to be an actual, like, full release, or if it's going to be a downloadable game too. I would assume that it will probably be a full game, just because it's made by a different developer, and Nintendo doesn't tend to do, like, big downloadable games that often, but we'll see what happens. The thing I'm most excited for is that, as Greg said, it's kind of like this kind of beat-em-up, hack-and-slash style game, but all the hands-on impressions say that you basically activate individual elements using the shoulder buttons on a controller, so you can do whole combos just using one element, or switch between them at will, and apparently it flows pretty well. So when you're near the end of the game and have all the elements, this should be pretty crazy doing some 4-element combos. But we'll see how this game turns out. We haven't seen any, like, in-game footage. We've just seen a few screenshots and then a trailer showing some of the cutscene animation. But yeah, other pieces of news are just that this Wednesday, June 2nd, we'll see the release of The Rift Part 1 for $1 in comic book stores. That's the Dark Horse promotion. So if you don't have the book, get out to your comic book store and get it. Just $1 for like 70 pages of content. And then K301 In Harm's Way, the 4th episode of Book 3 Change, has a preview clip out. Nick, or really quick to get this one out. This episode's going to air July 11th, as the show is on break next week for July the 4th. But we'll talk about that probably next week after we review the Earth Queen episode. But yeah, let's get into the roundtable for this episode. And that's going to be K301, A Breath of Fresh Air, written by Tim Hedrick and Joshua Hamilton, directed by Colin Heck and new director Melchior Zweier, I think, animated by Studio Mir, of course. So we'll start with some general thoughts before we get into some specifics. But Troy, what are your overall thoughts on the first episode of Book 3?
It was definitely interesting. They did give time to some things that seemed strange that the next two episodes didn't really carry over quite the same, but I definitely do like the opening. It was very funny. It was very lighthearted, but at the same time very serious, and had a lot of emotional moments that were very shown, which I liked.
Yeah, you can see straight away for me that the writing is just the best it's ever been on the show, just because they seamlessly go from humor to more kind of serious kind of mentor style moments, and then the perfect way to end the episode with the kind of first introduction of the villains, which I didn't think we were going to get until maybe next episode, but I like that they kind of did the kind of book one style thing where they just villain right at the end, a little hint of what he's about. And overall, just really good first episode, introducing a lot of new stuff, but also continuing the fact that the last episode was the last episode of book 2 had a lot of crazy stuff going on, and it definitely continued on from there. But Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Overall, I think I really enjoyed it. It flowed pretty well for me. I liked a lot of the transitions going back and forth between the serious stuff and the funny stuff, and I think overall it was pretty well written. It had a lot of quotable lines, a lot of lines I really like how they flowed in the sentences in the story, especially from Tenzin and his words of wisdom. So overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yep, I agree. It's great, I think, so far, because it does have that really good balance of emotion and funny moments and just general fun moments. I really like the direction it's going with the characters. I think that's this highlight of this episode. The direction where the characters are going are very positive and not necessarily negative toward them. I mean, they're going to have problems and they're going to have to face those problems. I'm not saying that it's all perfect, but what I'm saying is I'm liking what they're doing with the characters, with the dialogue, where they're going with it, and I really hope that they follow up with what they have so far, because they're setting up for some amazing stuff. And so far from the other two episodes we saw, I think it's been doing that. So if I dare say so, it felt a little bit more to me like Avatar than it has in a very long time. But that's just my own personal opinion. Just a little bit. I'm not trying to copy it with Avatar. I'm just saying something about this felt a little more Avatar, and I don't really know how to explain that.
Yeah, I definitely did notice that there's definitely a tendency for the characters that's supposed to be a bit more equal. You got that all of them had something going on, and it wasn't just at the start of book 2, people were disliking Mako. This time, the little bit we got of Mako is actually interesting, and I think a lot of people are liking that. But yeah, we'll get into some specifics now. We're going to go through the episode scene by scene. That's the way this works. And I'm going to recap briefly what the scene was, and then we'll talk about it, and then move on to the next scene for anyone listening. But yeah, the first scene is that we open up Book 3 on Air Temple Island with Boomy chasing the spirit Boomju around the place, trying to apologize for getting mad at him. He then climbs onto a tree branch, trying to grab Boomju, but it snaps, and this leads to Boomy basically falling towards his death. Lots of rocks below. He desperately throws his hands out in front of him, and out of nowhere he airbends, cushioning his fall and leaving everyone shocked, including himself. But Kelly, what were your thoughts on the opening scene here? This was our extended preview clip, but what were your thoughts on it?
Definitely a great scene, very funny, then suddenly very, oh my god, out of nowhere. It's one of those things where, I guess this is one of those parts I'm saying that kind of reminded me of Avatar, like that balance of this is a serious moment with like really funny moments in between. Quickly right off the bat, I think the animation is great. That's just like something I have to say like right off the bat. I'm glad Studio Mirror's back. Let's just say that now. We're good. Okay. And I will say they really started it like fast. They're like, boom, this is what it's gonna be. We have funny moment with Boomy, and then we have airbending. That's they started fairly quick. There was no like slow thing. This is very boom. This is how things are, and I actually like that. It's because we know what we're getting into, and I like how they're starting it like quickly.
Yeah, I agree. This was a pretty good way, and I think it's interesting that they sort of like decided to, I guess, opening this book with Boomy and just going straight forward, just showing the airbending, because I mean, Boomy is, he's one of the new, I guess, fan favorite of the series and whatnot. So I think it was a good choice that they actually chose to started with him, and the fact that they're showing him airbending. I mean, it pretty much just leads you right ahead into what this whole book is gonna be about. So I enjoyed that they did that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. We really got to like showcase Boomy's character here too, because like we don't normally like see him, just kind of like, we do see him, but most of the time, he's the one that's just kind of with the group telling these stories. So I think it was great just getting him with like his pet now, was pretty great. And you really got to like showcase his, voice acting, like when he landed and like the way he said, "Hey, I'm airbending." I just thought that was a great showing of what was going on, and yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good opening scene. Like Greg said, interesting that the book actually starts off just with Boomy, complete focus on Boomy, no other character in sight, and then straight away into the fact that there are airbenders. Boomy's an airbender now, and then if you haven't seen any of the like preview material in the lead up to this would definitely be like a pretty shocking moment. We all knew what the whole story was going into the book, but still it is a kind of big moment to start off with, definitely. But our second scene is we see Korra, Tenzin, and Jinora walking through a vine-infested section of Republic City. Korra cannot seem to get rid of the vines no matter what she does. They keep growing back. But Jinora thinks that they should keep the vines where they are because they're the spirits' homes, and obviously Korra has changed the world at the end of Book 2. Korra then leaves to tell the press that the vines are here to stay. I like this scene mainly because you still got a little bit of Jinora being the kind of spiritual advisor in a way to Korra still, and we see that throughout these opening kind of 3 episodes that she stays with the main group even when her siblings kind of aren't allowed to go, and I just like that they kind of do like respect her opinions on these matters, that she is the most spiritual of kind of the main cast of characters that we have here. But overall, it was definitely interesting, just a nice scene when like you kind of, only if you're looking really detailed at the background can you actually like notice that their building's covered in vines, and then you get the moment where she just kind of pulls the vines across and they're just smack bang in the middle of Republic City. So I thought it was a kind of really nice way to, I suppose, introduce Korra to the series, that this is the big issue she's going to deal with at the very start of the book.
Yeah, I agree. This is a pretty good way to introduce Korra, and I really like just in this scene, I really like Jinora and like her, I guess her menagerie of like the spirits that are following her around. Like they're all like in like a perfect line following her, so you definitely can see that Jinora definitely is keeping up with I guess her spiritualness that she's going to be throughout the whole series. And even like the spirits and those little spirits in general, I thought they were pretty interesting, and you can see how they're affected by Korra too, because like when she firebends, like they all sort of like fade away or whatever, and then they come back, and like Jinora's sort of like consoling them. So we definitely can see, even if the spirits aren't all around like all over the place, they're definitely going to play a pretty important role, I'm guessing.
What I felt this did is that it reminds me of that interview we had shortly after Book 2 with Mike and Brian, how they said, the vines would be everywhere in Republic City and that would be a plot point. But if you hadn't had that, like, interview, or you hadn't watched it, you're just watching the show, this, like, definitely does set up the idea of, like, what exactly is going on with the vines, like, okay, the vines are still there, and this is, like, the problem they have, that they're just, like, taking over people's homes. I thought was needed. And just like to get Korra's character moments, like I think she says like, you know, she's the Avatar, she can vanquish Fatu, but she can't get rid of the vines. I thought was good character moment. Just kind of, it shows that Korra, you know, is still lacking in a way. Like, you know, she got rid of Vatu and Unavatu and stuff, but like she can't like still do this like new challenge, and I thought that was pretty interesting, just to like give Korra another challenge, and then how you find out that it's Republic City there and not like some town or like just in a forest.
I agree. I definitely think it's interesting to have this idea in the first place. I remember when we saw this first 5-minute clip, I thought it was interesting because I always thought the vines were just kind of like, well, okay, so villains doing villain things, you know. I never thought of it as something that would actually be an important role, in that now that the spirits are here, they're integrated into these people's homes, and it is a sudden change. I mean, it's like it's a very political subject, and this whole first episode has to do with like, can't people handle change, or can handle change, or do they have the right to handle change? So it's very it's very interesting, and like Troy said, Korra is still not ready to face things like that. She may be able to fight this big monster and be able to save the world, but I mean, she still has to figure out what the people want and how to handle the people. And by the end of this episode, she learns that, you know, some people are just never going to be happy. And I think that's a very, when we'll get to that, we'll get to that. But I think that's actually a phenomenal, and ironic lesson of the show. I think that's a little bit telling of the show's fans in general. And I think it's a very good idea, so.
Yeah, and the other thing we get from this scene is that the change is like kind of affecting the whole city, but it's also affecting Korra. Like, I think a lot of, as we go through this episode, people just assume Korra knows exactly what to do because she's the Avatar, when she's just a person as well and has no idea what to do. Like, these vines, like, she's not a spirit, she doesn't know the specifics of how these vines work either. But our next scene is that Korra arrives as Raiko is talking to the press, and they say his approval rating is nearly as low as Korra's. He says that he's struggling with the vines too, and then Korra arrives and says that the vines have only been here for a few weeks, harmonic convergence has only happened that long ago, and she needs time to fix things. Raiko then prepares to basically blame everything on Korra when Korra cuts him off and says that, you know, she was the one who defeated Unavatu and is allowing basically the city to even exist now, and he and his administration could never have done that. And Asami then arrives and attempts to cheer Korra up, but Korra just thinks that she should be the one to be able to fix things. Kelly, what were your thoughts on this scene here with Raiko?
That this president stinks. I mean, he's really, like, rude. Like, he's like, she saves her city, she does everything she can, and then he has to, you know, like, idiocy to blame everything on her. Like, it's really, like, I think he's just under pressure of people not liking her. It's really him not liking him, like, as the president, and he's just, like, trying to blame everything on her, which is so, like, I mean, you're, what, 40? Grow up, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's a commentary on politics in general. At this point, this is kind of what it's looking like. And, I really like the scene because it shows that neither of them are liked by the people. There's no, like, one side, that the people are just really bitter right now. And it's making me think, like, I really don't like this city. Like, people are just always bitter, like, are always complaining, like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Which I guess is, I mean, it's not like it's not important, but I'm saying I'm getting, like, annoyed at the city. Like, the city is just so, like, annoying. Which is why by the end of this episode, when certain things happen, I'm like, good. I'm like, there you go. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't care about pro bending well, I do care about pro bending, but if we're not going to see any, we're out of here. You know what I mean? So, it's a good scene, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy that it all gets resolved at the end.
Yeah, I really hate Raiko. I hated him last season, and I know we had a few discussions about, you know, how, like, okay, you can sort of understand Raiko's situation, you know, he's the president here, but this time, he's definitely just kind of trying to blame everything on Korra when she's basically allows his city to still exist, you know. Lin saved his life when Unavatu was attacking and all this other stuff, and he's still just kind of trying to deflect blame away from himself and blame everything on Korra. And I agree with Kelly too, you know, especially the press in this city are just like, please go away. Please. Stop trying to get a crazy story for your newspaper. And yeah, I agree when it happens at the end. It's just like, okay, I can deal with this for a while. Yeah, I really did like the moment when Korra just kind of went up to him, kind of grabbed him by the chin, and was kind of like making him nod in agreement with her, and it's just like, yeah, because your administration do this? No, I did that. And then Lin has to separate them. It's a pretty good scene.
Yeah, I agree. This is a pretty good scene. I think President Reiko now, like, I mean, before in the past, like you guys said, you could sort of see like the reasons like behind some of his actions, but he seems to be now like just in like full like on like politician mode, like just deflecting everything, blaming other people. Like he seems like he's really just trying to save himself and his own like face as far as like how the public views and whatnot. So he really just, I don't know, he really just can't deal with the changes. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see how, like when they do eventually come back to Republic City, how people like view the situation and whatnot. Like, have they even attempted to adjust it, or is he still probably gonna like be blaming Korra for everything, or even just like how the press in general, like, I mean, we haven't really seen like, you know, like normal people in Republic City, like actually like, you know, go up to the Korra and like complain. It's really just the press, and, you know, the press can sort of take things out of hand. So it'll be interesting to see how like, you know, some regular citizens view everything as well.
Yeah, you know, at least President Reiko, like in this speech, he criticized like the press for being too flashy. So at least that he's like trying to take on the issues in the press. And yeah, like I don't think like he's gonna have another administration. Like there's nothing like he can do to like have another administration. So like I don't even think he's trying anymore. Like he's pretty much just like, okay, time to give up on this. Like, you know, what's more to lose? And like I don't know who he's listening to, because he like mentions like the vines in his office or the tree in his office. Like what political advisor told him to like mention that? It just seems like so distant from the people. Like he's trying to associate with them, but it's not working. And then Korra was pretty interesting. How are we going to talk about how she talked with Asami?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, how she talked with Asami was pretty great. Just like it was a kind of funny moment to get like Korra Asami like, you know, I rarely attack a ship, and I don't think I'm really attacking this. I just think that Korra Asami, like Nickelodeon, won't allow it to become canon. So this is just like total fan service for like these Korra Asami kind of minor interactions that could, you know, Nickelodeon could justify as being friends. Was pretty interesting, and just that line from Korra, and I think it's like one of the best Korra lines. You know, I'm the Avatar. I should be able to fix this. I thought was pretty great.
Mm-hmm. And we'll finish the discussion on this scene with Gomu for president next year. But yeah, next scene is Bumi arrives back at the temple, and he wants to tell everyone he can airbend, but he starts rambling, and everyone then ignores him. And when he tries to bend, he can't seem to do it anymore. Inside, Bolin then talks about how he loves being part of a big family, and explains that Mako is still staying at the police station and focusing on his work, and that he's a bit moody of late. Bumi still can't convince everyone that he can bend, and decides that his life needs to be at risk for it to actually happen. He then asks Bolin to bend a boulder at him, but instead Milo ends up throwing a plate at him, and suddenly Bumi starts to airbend to protect himself, and it works, and he reveals to everyone that he is in fact an airbender. And we get a lovely pan around the room to see everyone's amazing shocked faces as they all realize that the world now has a new airbender. So yeah, we as the audience found out in the first scene that he was an airbender, and now all the main characters except Mako find out that he's an airbender in this scene. Greg, what are your thoughts on this?
This scene was really, really fun to watch. I mean, I remember when we got the clip of this and we just like saw it stop with him like airbending, and we didn't see the people's faces. I was like, oh, I want to know what everyone looks like. So it was really good to actually be able to see everyone's faces and everyone's reactions, and everyone's super shocked except for Rohan. He's just like smiling or whatever, like he knows something's going on, but he doesn't really understand it. Yeah, so that was really good. And the other part I really liked was I really like Bolin's like breakdown of like the whole family and just like all of their like individual roles and whatnot. I thought that was really interesting how he just breaks it down, and he's like so happy to be part of it. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was nice actually set up for the third episode when you get the focus with Bolin and Mako on family, and I suppose even just like moments like later on, like this in I think the second episode when they're planning to go, and the reason Mako eventually goes is because Bolin kind of starts bringing up family. So we get a hint straight away that the brothers' kind of story is going to be very family focused, which is good because everyone else kind of got a family focused story at the start of the last book, and now they're finally getting some nice focus. But overall, yeah, really cool scene, and yeah, I agree. Just I was so eager to see what the next scene was after the end of that preview clip, but didn't let me down. Milo's face was pretty awesome when it happened, even though he was the one who threw the plate, so he clearly just wanted to smash Boomy in the face with a plate. But yeah, good scene.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, including all of that, I actually really like the setup to the scene where Boomy is trying to explain, what happened, and he's, getting into the details that have nothing to do with the airbending, like how he's and then I tried to knit him a sweater, and he didn't like it very much, but it was my first time, and he should have given me a jet, it was, this whole, blah, and they're great, let's go eat dinner, it really sums up the entire, relationship of this family. I thought that scene in itself was probably one of the funniest in the episode, along with the rest of it. I was waiting for those reactions too, and again, I was not disappointed in Milo's face. If you even look behind the air bubble thing, you see Bolin and Korra's face, which are also what? So it's all very well done, and I like how Boomy is I gotta tell Mom that, I have to tell Mom, she'll be so happy, and then he drops the plate, and it just smashes on the table, and then the scene just cuts to commercial. It's amazing how they're able to balance such a serious thing with all this comedy. It's you wouldn't think that this would be as funny as it is, because, airbenders are back, but it is, and it's hilarious. And I do like the setup for the family thing, too, because I'm loving that. I'm loving the whole Bolin, Mako family thing, and later, in the next episode, there's another thing with family related, and I'm this is so, it's heart-wrenching. You're yes, family, they're not alone. But, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I really like the comedy in this. It's airbending coming back, and yet it's comedy too. I thought was pretty great, and just Milo throwing the plate, I thought was very well artistically done. And just everyone's reaction, they were just we were wondering what type of reaction everyone would have and what their first words would be. And I think Tenzin spoke first and was just amazing, which was kind of a touching moment. This coming from Tenzin and Boomy, who kind of don't have the best family relationship with each other. They have a good one, but not the best. So that was pretty interesting. And yeah, Bolin explaining everyone's role in the family and the artistic decisions they did for that. Milo has these two chopsticks in his mouth. Was pretty great. And just seeing, him trying to imitate Mako's hair. I just loved it.
Yeah, that was a good piece of animation, just that they actually did that. Just Bolin just saying that, look, I can make my hair like my brother too. It just takes me doing this. And, yeah, that was nice. But, yeah, the next scene is at the police station. We actually see Mako, and he receives a call about a new airbender and goes to investigate. He arrives at this shop where a man and his brother were arguing, and one says that his brother is hiding in the back and he got mad after they had some form of an argument. Mako doesn't believe him because he obviously hasn't seen the moment with Boomy before, obviously living in the station. And basically, Mako takes a door to the face as the airbender runs off, scared about his kind of uncontrollable powers. I really like this because it was a kind of almost complete opposite to Boomy, in that he discovered his power when his life was at risk, and then this guy apparently discovered his power just by having an argument and can't seem to control them. Boomy is struggling to actually make his powers work. This guy's struggling to actually keep them in. So I like that kind of variance in the kind of new airbenders and how their powers are kind of manifesting. Makes everything seem really different, and especially because they are all mainly kind of older characters who are learning it. So it's pretty interesting, and then just nice getting to see Mako doing some police work as well. You can see he's clearly been on the job for a couple of weeks and is used to it now. But Troy, your thoughts on this scene with Mako, one of your favorite characters?
Yeah, I really do like it. Mako in this scene, doing more police work was great. Just like the way they do his uniform, the uniform design is really good. And I like the idea of like this guy, I think his name is like Fawn or something.
Yeah, it's like a Daw or something, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, Daw. His character design is also good, how he has like those two mustache pieces and then the like really wild hair, and also like because of like how wild, controlling the airbending has been. And that's something like as soon as someone's gotten bending that we haven't really seen, them struggling to be able to control it. I think like this is our first time seeing it instead of like fire bending. Like a fully developed firebender struggling to control it, like a new bender struggling to control their bending was pretty interesting. And also how he runs off and he's like missing a shoe. And this is just like classic like police business, things going horribly wrong and all these strange mysteries just popping up.
Yeah, I agree. Mako in this scene, I mean, I really like him as well. I mean, Mako seems like he's just like the like perfect like cop, like even like his whole like demeanor and the way that he's like responding to the guy who's trying to explain what happened to his brother and whatnot. It seems like, and even Mako, he's like, I know this is what's going on, like there aren't any other airbenders, like he knows what's going on, he's trying to like console him, but he also knows what he knows. And I think they do a really good job of portraying Mako as a cop in this scene. And even like the Dao and just how his whole, like, I guess the whole way he reacts to just having airbending is pretty interesting. It'll be pretty interesting to see just over the course of like this whole series how different people react to getting bending powers, whether they're older or younger, and we even see some of that in like the third episode and whatnot. So that'll be pretty interesting to sort of, I guess, keep track of as the series goes along.
I agree. I'm really liking like this first scene with Mako, because I guess it's one of those things where maybe it is because it's just him in this scene and we're just kind of getting focused on him, like, because so far everything with Mako had to do something with like a girl, and it's like it's been like this whole shipping drama thing or whatever. I liked seeing him doing his job and taking it seriously. Literally the first scene cracked me up because when the phone rang, he hit his head on the table, and it's like little things like that, or things that remind me of Avatar and stuff, like those little details that like he could have just stood up, but he just hit his head and he was like a mess because he slept under his desk. Like, that's so sad. Like, it's like he's like completely isolating himself, which actually is really getting into an interesting arc that I really hope is resolved well. I thought it was hilarious with the airbender as well, in that I really like the differences. I like the fact that Bumi is trying to airbend, and this guy is like, I can't stop airbending. So it shows that each person has their own like emotional chakra chi differences. It's not like when you're an airbender, you could just do everything the same. Like, I'm sure there are waterbenders who, even though it's an emotional element, maybe even when they get mad, they don't necessarily break an iceberg. I like that. I like those differences. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where Mako goes throughout this book.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we get some Mako in the next scene too. We see Korra and Tenzin talking about like how Bumi got this bending, and Korra assumes that it was because he was in the spirit world at harmonic convergence, though we kind of later have it more or less confirmed that it's just caused by harmonic convergence. We did see at the end of book 2 the world basically getting engulfed in this kind of purple energy that kind of passed through everyone, so that's clearly, at least for now, what we're meant to believe what caused it. But Bumi's struggling to activate his bending on command. Then Mako and Lin arrive and tell Tenzin that there is another new airbender. They then reveal that Bumi's an airbender, and they're starting to piece some things together. Korra reveals that she wants to help with the police search, and then Mako starts acting all awkward around Korra and Asami, and he kind of doesn't know whether to just be kind of casual around them, or be a policeman around him, or just be super formal, and he kind of just leaves, leaving the girls completely like confused and concerned about the way he's acting. I like this, that it wasn't just things go back to normal between them, and I also like that Mako's not starting this book in a relationship with Asami, because we didn't know if that was a thing or not at the end of the last book. So it's nice to know that, okay, there's no relationships really among Team Avatar right now. It's just they're all friends, and the breakup has caused some issue with not like all of them, not like Mako, Korra, and Asami all are not getting on. It's just Mako with the girls. He's not sure how to handle himself. We get more scenes with this, but I like the kind of start of it here, that he's just kind of acting weird. He does the salute before he leaves, which they make fun of later. But yeah, that was it. That was nice. But Kelly, what were your thoughts on this scene?
I love this scene too, because I'm really liking the way this is done, because it's like a real life. This show is really good at like carrying things over continuity wise. I mean, you get Mako's position. You're like, literally his two ex-girlfriends that for the past 2 books has been the problem, the reason for all of his problems with the fandom and with the show. You can see him, he's trying to isolate himself from them, and it's really heartbreaking, and it's kind of hilarious to see him like it's hilarious in a sad way, I guess you could say, because he's trying so hard to be like, no, it's official business. You know, he's like not even looking him in the eyes. It's like, I'm really liking the way they're handling this, because it's like real. It's like, this is kind of like, it's extremely awkward for him. And it's funny how like Korra and Asami don't seem to mind. I'm actually happy about that Korra and Asami have moved on. He can't move on. He's very like, I messed this up and now I don't feel like I'm part of anything anymore, which is why he's staying at the police station. And like I said, I'm really liking where they're going with this. Just quick props to David Faustino, because I thought his delivery on those lines were hilarious and like very emotional. He was like, this is police work. It's like, I thought it was like very funny how he delivered those lines. So, and if you notice, this cracked me up. If you noticed, when they're having that conversation, you just see Tenzin like stick out his tongue and like slide away, like, no, I don't want to do this. And Korra's like, how are you doing? Like, I like how Korra is literally like, friends, like, how are you doing? You're welcome to stay with us. Like, they are still friends, but Mako can't process that, because he's never, and Asami says it later, he just cannot like understand it or express emotion. And I find that hilarious. I find it's like, I think the term is like dork online. Like, it's kind of like a dorky thing to do. I don't know why. It's like a Tumblr thing apparently, but I guess that's how you would describe it. But I'm liking this a lot.
Yeah, I agree. This whole scene is pretty good, and I really like just in the start how you see like Boomy trying to airbend and whatnot, and can't really do it, and you see him doing like random hand movements to sort of like get his airbend to activate, and that sort of reminded me of like the original first like Spider-Man movies where he's trying to shoot the web out and whatnot. But even like, I don't know, it's interesting with Kaya too, like how she said like she sort of like sensed like a spiritual change in Boomy. He's like, well, why didn't you tell me? And I don't know, sometimes I wonder, like, can Kaya really sense like the spiritualness, or she can't? I don't know. It's interesting how that plays out. But yeah, overall, I thought the scene was really good. And Mako, he really is like a dork in that scene. And even when he does like sort of the salute when he like walks away from them, which comes up later on where the girls do it, just to sort of make fun of him was really good. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, poor Mako. His head is like so broken now that he can't even look them in the eye. I feel so much for him, because he's like, in book 1 he was so expressive about his emotions. In book 2, like, he expressed them like wrong, and now he's like, oh, I can't be around them. Like, my baby's heart's been broken. But I do like seeing Boomy try to airbend, and like how Kaya is like, I have been noticing a change in your and Boomy just like explodes. You didn't tell me? I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, and it's pretty great just to like see Mako and like just kind of follow Lin along. Like, Mako's pretty much like, I think, the top detective now, and he's like Lin's assistant, I assume, to some degree, or at least of like detective work. So that's pretty interesting just to like see them tag up. I thought was pretty nice.
Yep. Next scene is the one that made all the Korra-Asami shippers go crazy. It's Asami and Korra go for a drive, with Asami giving Korra the keys so she can drive, and as expected, Korra struggles with the clutch, and they just kind of chug along gradually, and then eventually Korra gets the car going properly. They kind of joke about Mako's awkwardness before, and they hope that it will get better soon once the recent breakup becomes, I suppose, history, I suppose. And then the girls both admit to each other that they had both kissed Mako while he was dating the other. I think that's the best way to say it. But are happy that it has not come between them. And Korra says that she's happy to have a girlfriend to talk to that is not Naga. And, yep, Korra and Asami are like best friends now, and I like it. I think it's a really cool thing, and I did like the scene that kind of driving is kind of like Korra and Asami's thing that they kind of bond over. They always seem to have their kind of one-on-one talks when like driving or something like that. That's cool. And then I suppose character development, Korra is actually learning how to drive gradually. It was pretty nice, but overall it was just nice. The kind of clear the air type scene, just like, okay, these girls don't have a problem with everything that happened in book 1 and 2, because as fans we just assumed that like, why aren't they like angry at each other after everything that's happened? But this was nice to get. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this was a good scene. I mean, it's just good to get like a nice like chill scene. I mean, they really do seem like besties now. They're just, having a decent conversation in the car without like any like angst or anything going on. And for some reason, like I really noticed like Korra's like face in this and sort of like her expressions and whatnot when she's like making fun of Mako and whatnot. Like I really like how they did that whole like sort of like animation and whatnot. And even like you can even notice like little things like the guy who's like honking behind them and then like stares at them while they're passing. That was like a nice little added touch that they added to it. So yeah, it was a good scene. I really liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Like, wow, they're really going for the fan service here with Korrasami. I don't know when this was written, but like, did they see fan reactions to Korrasami and just like want that to like be a part of like just a reference in the show? But it's pretty great just like seeing. It's kind of odd to me how Korra and Asami have been getting along. I would have like preferred for their friendship, like if they had a little bit of problems with each other and then like had a forgiveness phase. I think that would have actually like a build up to a forgiveness phase been more emotional than just they've always gotten along. But maybe it'll work out. Maybe there'll be like some degree of development to it or some like perspective on it they'll show. That'll make it like really sisterly. I think I would like. And, yeah, it was pretty funny when they were driving, like, just my thought process when the car was behind them. I was like, okay, Korra, go. And then she's, like, looking around, and then the car, like, goes in front of them. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm really liking the fact that the scene was, and even in the show in general, like, it was just a nice, calm scene to settle everything that's happened in the last 2 books in just, like, one car ride. Korra being hilariously awful at driving. I noticed that, too, the guy in the back who's just giving her, like, the death stare, like the Luigi death stare or something, like annoyed at his driving, which really, it was very funny to see that. All those little details, like I was saying. And I love Korra's reaction because Asami genuinely feels guilty, and I really like that Asami owned up to that, because, like, we remember that Korra couldn't even really do that, you know what I mean? And, like, with this, how I was really annoyed with Asami last book? Not necessarily with her character, but how they handled her character. I like what they're doing now in that the friendship that they were growing to have at the beginning of book 1 in episode 7 when they were, like, driving in that, like, race car, and, like, you could tell that these two are, like, gonna be really close friends, and then all the shipping stuff happened. They were still able to keep that friendship despite everything that happened, because they just get along so well, because, like, they both really like the same stuff, and they're sportive, and it's cool. And I just love Korra's reaction to Asami saying, I kind of kissed him, and she's like, no wonder he's so worried. She literally just, like, laughs. She's like, I kissed him, so whatever. I'm loving this. It's like there's no, like, drama. They're just like, look, we have bigger problems right now. I'm talking to a spirit hedgehog. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. It's like, push all that stuff aside. We're gonna be cool, awesome friends now, which I cannot be happier about that. I actually am really happy about this, to be honest. And I want Mako to find his way back in the group, but I'm loving Korra and Asami's friendship, and I can't ask for anything better. You know what it is? I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm pretty sure Tumblr's like, oh my god, they're back. The show is back. Like, as if it was dead before. It wasn't necessarily dead before, but it had its problems. This is like everything we wanted and more. Korra and Asami friendship. More Mako development that doesn't have to do with shipping. Airbending. This is literally like a dream.
Yeah, I just hope that the people who are actively wanting to ship Korra and Asami don't turn this into a kind of shipping problem that we had before. That's effectively what happened with book 1 and 2, that people got so crazy about all the shipping stuff that it kind of got in the way of some of the actual good stuff.
They can ship it if they want. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not even against it because it's like, well, they are kind of awesome together. You know what I mean? It's like not even, I don't care. But if they turn it into like this thing, like they do with like all these other shows, that it's gonna, please don't. Like, keep it, like, you know, have fun with it. Don't fight other people with their ships. Let them ship what they want, people.
Yeah, like right now this is being set up as like a really cool friendship between these two girls that we've been just waiting to happen, and let's just be happy that that's the case right now, because as we just discussed, we were unsure if this was going to happen for a while, and we're finally getting that. Let's just be happy with what we have. But speaking of spirit hedgehogs, we meet a spirit hedgehog. He's living on a vine that's blocking the road, and Korra just says that, you know, the vines are getting in the way, and all the spirit pretty much says is that, you know, like, you're the Avatar, you should know that, you know, spirits and the vines are one and the same, effectively, and this gives Korra the idea about how to get rid of the vines, because she can spirit bend them, like she can do that with spirits. That was something I didn't know, that the vines are spirits too. It makes sense, but I want a little bit more explanation if they go back to the vines as being a plot point, but I'm not really sure what was going on here. Cool design on the spirit hedgehog thing, the way his kind of spines changed depending on how, like, emotional or angry he was. Just a quick scene. I liked it.
With the vines, I imagine it's because vines are living things, like plants and stuff, but that's my own personal opinion. I don't actually know if that's how it goes. But it is interesting that they are spirits. I imagine it's more of the fact that it is a spiritual being, rather than like it's like talking and living like that talking mushroom or something like that. But it was a good idea, kind of, but I don't know, it's kind of, it came out of nowhere a little bit for me. I was like, oh, okay, here's the solution with the talking hedgehog, which, I don't know, it's just my own, like, personal, okay, cool. But it was a good scene, and that hedgehog did look really cool.
And I suppose this is one of the only spirits we actually see in pretty much the first 3 episodes. Like, we see Jinora with them at the start, we see this hedgehog, and I think that's about it. I don't think we see a spirit really again for the rest of the opening premiere episodes, which I found interesting given that the last book was called Spirits, but who knows. The vines seem to be more of a problem than the spirits themselves, I suppose, is the main thing to say.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because, I'm sorry, one quick point. I'm surprised they haven't brought up, like, the spirits, because, like, I imagine just spirits are walking around in people's houses, because the vines are in the houses. So I thought that was something they'd bring up, like, there are spirits sleeping in my bed, you know what I mean, like, or something like that, which maybe they didn't want to delve into too much. Maybe they didn't want to, like, overdo it, so it makes sense, but I'm surprised they didn't bring that up.
Yeah, that is interesting, but I mean, I'm guessing if the vines are spirits, then it would make sense that, you know, that's sort of like, I guess, one and the same, and that is the huge main issue. But I mean, it's interesting that they're spirit vines, because I mean, I guess when you think of when Unavatu created them, it sort of looked like he was like sort of bringing them out of the ground, but I guess maybe because, you know, he's like, you know, the super evil spirit, maybe he's sort of like I guess transplanted them from the spirit world into the physical world, which I guess is maybe why they're, you know, spirit vines. But that's pretty interesting, and it's cool that that's how she sort of like gets the idea of how she could possibly remove them, even though it doesn't really work out in the end.
I like the setup going into the next scene, just kind of like how the hedgehog just kind of said spirits, vines were all the same. I thought that was a really like just a nice hint of what was going to go on. And as far as like vines versus spirits, I just kind of think that Unavatu, like this was 2 weeks ago, it said in the show, Unavatu like brought up the vines from the bottom of the ocean, or like from the spirit world. So it's not like the spirits have like the time to get from like the south or the North Pole to want to leave and then get to Republic City, kind of like in the northern hemisphere, like in the middle though. So I just kind of think that, you know, spirits, and that, you know, that could really hurt Reiko and Korra if, like, okay, they don't fix the vine problem, and then the spirits start living in the vines. That could definitely be an interesting, just an addition to what's going on in Republic City that might come in later. But I don't know if that's what happened, and I do feel like maybe they should have set up a little bit more with, like, spirits being inside of the vines, unless, like, the spirits and vines are different.
But our next scene is we see Tenzin meditating as he's looking at the statue of his father. He's happy to have more airbenders around, and he mentions that, after 170 years, finally more airbenders. His kids then arrive, and, that they talk about more airbenders. Milo wants to be the commander of an airbender army. Jinora says, we don't have armies, we're peaceful, and stuff like that. Iki asks if everyone's going to be their brother and sister, and then Tenzin starts to cry because he wishes that his father was here to see the air nomads return, and the kids say that they're going to help Tenzin make the air nomads return. So, pretty emotional scene here, but Troy, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Just like the way they did Tenzin, like meditating just directly facing the Aang statue, I thought was pretty interesting. Like you knew that like he was kind of meditating on Aang, even if he wasn't meditating like to Aang or like conversating with Aang. And definitely like, they can't get rid of the vines, but they can rebuild, like put the Aang statue back on the foundation again. I just like, that was just like an odd thing to me, like the Aang statue is back up there. I thought that would be like a symbolic defeat of the past avatars, the statue being in the bottom of the bay. But pretty great moments, pretty emotional, just kind of getting like Tenzin talking about Aang. And after 170 years, Aang would be so happy about this, but of course Aang can't be, so it's pretty emotional. I liked getting character development from like Ikki. The character development for Ikki in book 2, it wasn't as strong as in book 1. But I really liked Ikki here. Am I gonna have to share my room? Because I like my personal space. I thought it was great character development. And just kind of how like Tenzin explains, what this means to like his kids who are asking all these questions, I really liked.
Yeah, I agree. This was like a nice family moment here that it really like sort of like pulls at like your heartstring with we're hearing them like discussing like the Air Nation and the future of it and whatnot. And even I like how Milo's talking about like having like a air nomad army and whatnot, and Jinora of course says there's not, and of course we know in later episodes that is something that Soen is possibly working on. So yep, nice little hint of that foreshadowing. So I thought that was pretty cool how they sort of worked that in.
Yeah, this scene like pulled at my heart really bad because it's like even as soon as the scene started and Tenzin was meditating to Aang, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be emotional. No, but I adore the kids here. I love Milo's line, "Can I be the general?" And you could tell he would be a great general. I mean, he turned those lemurs into like an army in like a day? Like remember the lemur army thing? That was great. And Milo has the capability of being like a general person. And I remember that clip from the oh wait, no, that was the fake trailer. That was a fake trailer. See, that's why I have to keep my eyes up. Okay, anyway, let's forget about that. But I love the lines and that foreshadowing with the armies. I was like, oh, I didn't notice it now until we brought that up. I was like, oh my gosh. But Tenzin, oh my god, like his line that's like, I don't even remember the specific lines. I just remember the emotions that like we have a responsibility to bring these. We can bring these airbenders back, and we can have our nation again. Like his dad would be so proud. It's so like, I mean, you see tears in his eyes. I was like, oh, because this is really it. I mean, this is everything he's dreamed and hoped for, and oh gosh, it's so great. They need guidance, and like we will bring this nation back, and it's just so like, wow. Like it's actually happening, you know what I mean? And then next episode happens in probably the funniest scene in the entire all of Korra happens in that, which I'll guess when we talk about that episode I'll talk about. But it's a great moment.
Yeah. I just love this scene. I think Tenzin says some line like, there won't be enough for an army or something like that, and then Tenzin says, I just hope there's enough to fill the air temples, and that's when the tear comes out of his eye. It is a really nice moment, and especially because it's not just Tenzin on his own, like the kids come in. It's one of those type of scenes you don't really see too often in like TV shows full stop, just like Tenzin having this big moment that's very important to him because he's the kind of like the main son of Aang who was meant to be the person to bring the air nomads back, and he has kids of his own, but now it's kind of happening more than just him, and he's kind of he says he's not going to be the president, but he is going to be like one of the bigger leaders in the kind of new air nomads, and it is a big moment for him that last season he didn't really get to be Korra's spiritual mentor so much as it was Unalaq and Janora, but he did get to be her kind of personal mentor, and now he finally gets to do something that is kind of fulfilling, kind of, I suppose, what he wanted to do for his father, bringing the air nomads back and helping that come about, and he's going to involve the kids in that as much as possible, which is just really nice and very emotional scene. But we move on to Korra trying out her new plan. Raiko arrives with some press ready to record any failure from Korra, and then we see Korra go into the Avatar state and use her light/spirit bending technique on the vines surrounding a building, and it seems to work. The vines retreat under the water, and when she stops, it stays like that for a while, but then in seconds later, it just bursts back up, but even more kind of violently, and it even covers a building next to it that wasn't initially covered in vines, and the building then begins to collapse. We'll get into the moment after that, but I just thought it was interesting that we see this spirit light bending technique. I feel they need to name it just so I don't have to say this over and over again. But I like that this technique came back, and it was a clever way to do it, because if they are spirits, she should be able to kind of turn it into light or something like that. But in this case, it just kind of retreated and then came back. So even though they say it's a spirit, it's not quite, because it didn't just fade away like if she could do that to Unavatu, why couldn't she do it to this? So something's causing these vines to just stick around, that like this is going to be a permanent thing in Republic City, like it's going to include spirits. It's going to be the place where not just people of all four nations are, but spirits are as well. And if everyone can work together peacefully, that's kind of like the place of perfect balance in the world. It has every being living together in it, and it'll be a perfect mix of technology and also like nature with vines. So this could be interesting if they come back to it and like delve into that. But for now, it's just interesting that technique didn't work. But Greg, your thoughts?
Yes, it is pretty interesting that the technique didn't work, and it makes me wonder sort of like, I guess, like what side of like, I guess, good or evil or positive or negative the spirit vines actually are. Like maybe they're just neutral, so they're not really like evil, so you can't technically like spirit bend them away. Maybe that's, could possibly be a reason why she couldn't like sort of bend them away. Cause I mean, they did go away, they did recede, but they did come back, and they came back even stronger. So it makes me wonder if they have like, I don't know, some other like spirit beings control them, or they have some of their own sort of sentience, which wouldn't necessarily make sense, but they're spirit vines, so who really knows? But yeah, so that's pretty cool how that worked out.
Yeah, it's almost as if these vines are just like, they're meant to be there and you can't do anything to affect them. But Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, when I first saw that, well, let me just quickly cover one more thing before I get to the vines. Literally, Raiko is horrible, because at first he's criticizing the press, and next thing you know, he's bringing press with him to freaking get to Korra. I'm like, okay, can you just be fired now? Next term, go for president. Like, this guy is so horrible. He's just really, really annoying. And I'm so glad the way it ended, too. I'm actually happy the way it ended, because he's gonna regret that. But, with the vines, I wasn't too surprised, but then you brought up Unavatu, and it made me think about it. But the only reason I wasn't too surprised is I didn't think it would work, because I always imagined that technique meant they were sending him back to the spirit world, because they're like, go in peace. So I like the way like the light goes around it. I always thought that spirit light technique was like something to bring that spirit back peacefully into the spirit realm. So when she did that, I'm like, but they're combined now. Can't they just come back? And then boom, they came back. I was like, oh, well, there you go. There answers my question. But then you mentioned Unavatu and maybe some of the other evil spirits, and I'm like, maybe that's not how it works. And like, I don't know exactly how it works at all. Like, which I guess I could have discussed last week with the spirit stuff. I mean, that's always how I viewed it. So I think it is just the fact that they want to be here and they're part of the city now, because I imagine it's because Unavatu's powers were so strong. Like, I mean, it was equivalent to Korra in that big state. I mean, if little human Korra can't do it, it's not that surprising because, like, Unavatu made these things. And I think that's kind of how it works. And now it's like a permanent integration. And I like that because it makes people have to deal with it. I mean, it's going to stink at first, but I mean, if people can learn to try new things and stuff, like they mentioned, might be good. But, which is something else that happens in the next episode. This whole thing just has a bunch of the same themes. I like that. It's like a themed story.
What I would assume with the vines is, though, that they're not like light or dark spirits. I like to think with the water spirit bending technique or light spirit bending, that's kind of like healing. It's taking away their darkness and healing it into lightness. And with these vines, they're not like dark spirits. They're just like living vines, like creatures almost. And you can't just like, you can heal them, and healing them makes them stronger, but it does make them any more light for just like healing a person. That's just kind of what I assumed. So it's definitely interesting. Yeah, and Reiko bringing the press was just kind of like, he didn't like directly say that he brought the press like for Korra. He just like said the press was here for the event Korra was doing, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Just like seeing exactly what would happen, just like how they set off that tension between them. And it was also great, like, when Korra did get rid of, like, the first building, get the vines off of it, which didn't work, she, like, bows to it and says, "Go in peace." And I thought that go in peace stuff was just, like, an unnecessary step, but it really shows the difference between her and the press. Like, the press is so happy that it's gone, and Korra is, like, trying to respect the spirits by saying, "Go in peace." I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, she even says it when she defeats Unavatu as well, so it's just a interesting kind of thing. And again, those techniques possibly need better explanation about what they actually do, because then there's obviously that dark bending technique, which apparently just destroys someone's spirits, as Unalaq was going to do to Jinora, yet the light one seems to like just transform a spirit into light, but it killed Unalaq or something like that. It's a little bit confusing, definitely, but I think it works reasonably well. We'll get some form of explanation about what's going on with the vines, hopefully, whenever we return to Republic City. But yeah, after obviously the building is collapsing at this point, and going to the next scene, Korra rushes into it and orders everyone to evacuate. Then she uses her glider to glide up to the first floor and save a boy, but as she's grabbing him, she notices that the top of the building's falling down, so she quickly, like, dive bombs down, gets the boy to safety, and then earthbends this tower to a safe stop. I like this scene just because it was, like, a really quick and just amazing action scene that really got over how kind of amazing a physical bender Korra is, and then especially the whole idea of her having the glider. And I really hope they address if that is Aang's glider from Book 3 or not, because it looks exactly like it. And like Janora's glider, which we see I think in the next episode, is one of the kind of classic orange and kind of more square-based Air Nomad gliders. Yet this one seems very much like that one the Mechanist gave to Aang, but I just really enjoyed this action scene. But Troy, what were your thoughts on this?
I assume with the glider that it's just kind of like the Avatar has a different style glider. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think in Book 1 when in Voice in the Night we see Tenzin with his glider, and it's like the orange one that's like the fan shaped, and this one has like the profound like wings. Yeah, pretty nice, and I like seeing the expression on Reiko's face, like the concern he has as he's looking at the building when it's collapsing, was pretty interesting, and just like, you know, I guess like his security gets in the way almost, like he wants to be there like looking concerned, but at the same time like his security won't allow that. I thought it was like just pretty interesting, and just seeing Korra rescue the boy, and nice like 3D animation with the top of the building. Really, I do like seeing the buildings again, just like reminds you how tall they are, because they almost felt short, but no, they're like pretty tall.
Yeah, I agree. The perspectives that they had, like when they were showing the buildings, and even like one of the scenes at like the end of that little part, they do like sort of like a 3D pan around of you, where you see sort of like the angle of the actual building. The animation on that is really good. I like how they decided to show that. But yeah, it was a nice like quick action scene to sort of like break up like all the talking that's happened before. So I think they placed it pretty well in the story arcs, right, for this episode.
Yeah, I agree. That scene was really cool. I'm pretty confident that's Aang's glider, only because it looks different from the other gliders, and the Mechanist specifically made that for Aang. So I can't imagine he made like a bunch just like it. I feel as though like that's something he made for Aang, and I really, really hope it is the same, because that would just be awesome. That would just be amazing. Like I could just imagine like Tenzin giving it to Korra, like, this was my father's. Like, and I'm like, it would be like so emotional. Why did they have that? But no, the scene was really cool. I did like that CGI on that top of the little building. I was actually like, it's like I knew it was CGI. But, like, it was nice CGI. It wasn't, like, really bad looking or anything. Yeah. I remember there was, like, one scene. I can't quite remember what it was. But there was, like, one CGI moment in, like, Korra that I was like, oh, that's CGI there. I can't entirely remember what it was. But this actually looked very dynamic and like a cartoon, even though it was, like, clearly CGI. So I actually liked the way that was done. And Vine's coming back, like, even stronger than the before. It was really cool. I liked when she, like, opened up the door and the people were, like, trapped inside and they were, like, getting out. I'm like, that's really, kind of interesting, because they're, like, in an apartment building, so it's, like, interesting to see, like, all the different people. It was a really cool scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think there's only one way to prove that glider is, in fact, Aang's. Is the snack compartment there? Okay, yeah. They need to badly do that. Like, they're in the desert. You have a repeat of that moment. It's just like, oh, right, this did come in handy. But, yeah, next scene is Korra is attempting to meditate and contact her past lives, but she confirms to us that they are gone. She can't contact them. She then asks Tenzin if she has ruined everything by keeping the portals open, but he says that any change can be good or bad, and says that her role is not like the president's role. Her role is different, and that is to bring balance to the world and not just to make everyone happy. And so she will never be able to make everyone happy because her role involves the world. He says that he is happy because she has restored airbenders to the world, and that makes her a great avatar. But Korra is still unsure of what she needs to do, and Tenzin gives her the wisdom that true wisdom begins when we accept things as they are. I really love these kind of Korra and Tenzin kind of mentor moments that they have. We've had them now across all three books, and I just really like the way these two characters interact together, and this one worked really well because even though Korra's a lot more confident as the Avatar, she still has these moments where she just has no idea, like, for sure what she needs to do because the world is in such a crazy situation now, and she's not really sure, like, what specifically she should be doing in the city right now, and she needs some form of a goal to do, and obviously she gets that when she realizes that she should actively help to restore the airbenders, but right here it's just really interesting to have this working this way. But Troy.
Yeah, I really like this. The other Tenzin and Korra mentor scene, they were kind of like after they had a disagreement with each other, or Tenzin was trying to teach Korra while they were disagreeing. And I really like now that they've gotten over that, like the book 2 disagreements really were the final disagreements, like the final major ones between them. And I just like seeing that Korra, after the book 2 finale, she is way more confident with being the Avatar. I mean, she's not like crazy about it. She's not like really concerned, like she was at the beginning of book 2. And it's pretty interesting, like just seeing how much she doesn't know. Like the confidence thing is resolved, but she still doesn't know exactly how to be the Avatar. She's not like angry at anyone, but she like still needs to know how to be the Avatar. And I think like Tenzin, like he's effectively like the leader of the Air Nation now. Kind of like being the one who knows the most about the Air Nation, and how he's like almost a little bit biased when he's telling Korra, you're a great Avatar for bringing back the Air Nation, when maybe that's not quite in balance with like the United Republic nation. Maybe in the long term it is, and that's even brought up that Riker just kind of says, well, Tenzin says about Reiko that Reiko is focused on the short term, and Korra is focused on the long term, like the next 10,000 years of integrating spirits, and Reiko, is pretty much only concerned, with getting things now.
Yeah. It's like, I want to be good this week. Of course, just like, no, 10,000 years, it'll go wrong if you do this. But, Kelly.
I'm back. Sorry about that. What do you call it? I completely agree in that. I agree that it's good that it's you need long-term fixing. And I agree with Tenzin that, the fact that this has happened and Korra's choices ended up starting to fix a whole nation that's gone is a long-term balance thing. And with Raiko, he's just like, we need to fix this here, now, instead of thinking of like long-term plans that can help people in general. And, Korra having that pressure to like try to fix everyone's little problems, she just can't do that. Like, she can't work like in that way. Throughout the book, throughout all the whole series, Korra has never been able to do that really successfully. Like, get every single person to cooperatively get along. And, it's hard, but, that's kind of something that Aang was better at than Korra. Korra has the bigger picture on the hands. And I also agree that even though it's true that the airbending thing is in the long run, Tenzin does have the bias side. That, like, he's like,
yeah.
You brought my people back. You're, like, the best person ever. You know what I mean? Like, but, at least that's how I see it. You know what I mean? Like, Tenzin's like, you did, like, the great thing, but people are going to somewhat suffer from this. And I think the lesson here is that you can't do anything about it. There is no perfect solution. You have to try to help one cause and hope that somehow you're able to help everything. But, these people in Republic City are just, they're bitter at this point, and things are different for them, and they're going to have to get used to it. It's how things have changed, and I really like that lesson that you're not going to make everyone happy. So you have to do the best you can with what you think is right, because, either way, you're doing something right. It's not like you're doing everything wrong because you're helping these one cause. So it's definitely a really good lesson, and I really like these Tenzin Korra moments as well. Reminds me of back to the first book where the fourth episode where Korra was like scared and didn't want to speak to Tenzin about being scared, and now she's just completely out in the open. This is his mentor. They're really close friends. I'm loving this.
Yeah, this is really great. These lessons, they speak to everyone. They speak to the show, and they just speak to anyone who's watching. This is really one of those great, like Avatar teaching moments where they really teach, anyone who's watching the show just, about how to interact in like the real world and whatnot, and which, Avatar's always been really good at doing it. So this is just like one of those, I guess, like really like quotable scenes. Like if we ever come back to this future, I'm sure, we'll have like lines from this one of just Tenzin just sort of like breaking down how things are. And even if he is a bit balanced, there is wisdom in his words as well. So that's really good. And I also thought it was interesting how they sort of like started off the scene with Korra mentioning that like she can't connect with her past avatars, which I guess depending on how you sort of like interpret the scene, you could sort of see this as like, okay, so maybe they will possibly bring the past avatars back so that she can relate them, or is this really just showing us that they're not coming back ever and Korra's really going to be on her own? So there's a little bit, I guess, interpretation on the scene, but overall I think it works pretty well as far as just moving this episode along.
Yeah, I like how it does kind of go to show that you can't make everyone happy, because the opposite way, like where there were no spirits in the city, you had then people like Unalaq pop up who wanted spirits to be integrated into the physical world, and you had what happened in book 2 happen. This way it's happening now, but it's causing problems to like a lot of other people, but it's helping some other people out, and it's just very interesting. It does come back to that, Raiko is all about, just the citizens right now, and Korra's more focused on, the big picture that, like, the world will be better off if we can just get along, everyone can get along, and that's kind of been what she's had to deal with for, like, all of the books, like, dealing with the benders and non-benders getting on in book 1, spirits and humans in book 2, and now spirits and humans kind of round 2 this time around, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see, I suppose, when we come back to it. Like, as far as we know, like, we don't know when we're coming back to Republic City, so this could even be a thing that goes into book 4, I suppose, but still very, very good scene there. But the next scene is that Bolin interrupts this Avatar mentor moment and says that the new airbender has been kind of chased and he's now on top of Kyoshi Bridge and he's like freaking out. Korra attends and arrive and the guy's surrounded by metalbender cops who are on top of the bridge. There's like a standoff. They move in, but he accidentally airbends them off the bridge when he kind of moves his hands. Korra then flies up and chats with him, the guy whose name is Daw, I think, I don't know how to spell it, and to try and calm him down. She says that she's also having a bad day like he is, and that there are other airbenders who can help him and want to help him, and I find there's an interesting moment here. He asks her to kind of like make this stop, as if he's kind of saying, you can make my bending stop, and she says she can't. We'll get to that later. But he goes to grab her hand, but slips, and then Korra jumps down, saves him, and introduces him to Tenzin, where we get a diaper joke, which was quite good, actually, I think, all things considering. But yes, for me, the big scene here was almost I don't know if they're quite saying it, but the implication that Korra can't energy bend anymore since she doesn't have the connection to the past lives, because Aang would have been the avatar who learned energy bending, and the way he'd thought it to her was kind of via the avatar state, so maybe she doesn't have it anymore. Or else he was just saying that, I'm not going to just take bending away from someone just because they asked me to. It has to be like someone who's actually abusing their bending. I'm not quite sure. It definitely wasn't very clear on what exactly they were going for. But Kelly, your thoughts?
You want to know the hilarious thing? I didn't even think about that until you said it in that way. When you were like, I can't with the taking away the bending. It's as if all of book one just kind of like poof in my head. Like I completely forgot that she could just take people's bending. I was like, oh yeah, that thing. But or give it back, or maybe wait, she can give bending back. Could she take it away? Actually, did she even learn how to take it away?
I don't know.
So there you go. Yeah, maybe she didn't even know how to in the first place. But what do you call it? No, I really like this scene because it's like a basic. Actually, right before, can I be like annoying and ask to go back to the final line of the scene before?
Sure. Yeah.
There was Bolin. I forget what the actual thing Bolin asked when he said, "Is that a good thing?" Because I think Korra says something to Bolin, and then Bolin is like, "Is that a good thing?" And then she just responds with, "It depends on who you ask." I was like, it's like a good summary of the scene they just had. And I was like, oh, see, this is like a really good, the way they're doing this is really good in the sense that they are really hitting home these messages without making it in your face. Like the scene on top of that bridge, Korra is in that same position. He's like, I don't want this responsibility. I don't know how to handle this. I just want it to all go away. And Korra's like, you and me both, you know what I mean? But we have to find a way to learn and change as a person to be able to accept these new responsibilities. And I'm like, these are really good messages. And I like how she goes up there to just talk to him. She's like, I just want to talk. I'm not going to do anything. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like this whole scene in general, I don't know, the way this book is going just feels different. I don't know, like in a good way too. I'm not saying bad. I'm saying like something about this, I feel as though they have more of an idea of what they're trying to tell. Like they seem more like we are hitting home either a message and or a story arc for these characters, and we have it all planned out, and this is going to be like a really good story. And I'm like, I hope so. And so far it's been like that, and I am very impressed.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But, it was pretty interesting. I do like all the transitions they do in this episode. It seems to like flow very well. Like the hedgehog transition, and now the finding his hairbender transition, how they kind of set it in the last location, and now they're in the new location. Just a lot of good continuity. And, I like just kind of like Korra going up on top of the bridge and talking to him. I thought was pretty nice. Like, it's just kind of like complicated in that Tenzin just pretty much told Korra to focus on the long term, and then Korra just comes here and focuses on kind of the short term instead of like maybe the long term could have been seen as meditating. But you can't really tell what's long term and short term. Like maybe this guy, to his family that's important and it'll impact things in the long term. So I really do like that. And, pretty interesting. Just like the way Korra talks to him and tries to coach him to safety. And like, he's just totally afraid of himself at this point. I thought was pretty neat. Just like showing that, you know, you can't really like be effective if you're just totally afraid of yourself. I thought was pretty great. And just like seeing, seeing Korra sit down with him, and basically Korra had a really mature moment here. Not saying that, you know, her past moments were unjustified, just saying, you know, that she's developed now. This was a really mature moment, and I liked seeing that, and I like seeing her save him, and like the way they introduced him to Tenzin. And you would thought that like Tenzin was going to be this like strong guy to comfort him, and how Tenzin just started like getting all emotional, talking about like changing the diapers of the air babies and stuff, which was pretty emotional. And then at the same time, it was just like well balanced with funny how, you know, the guy said, "Well, I need a diaper change right now too."
Yeah, no, I agree. They did balance that out really well. I think this whole, like, I guess scene is just, it plays out pretty well, and especially with Korra, like, I think you're really starting to see, like, Korra development. Each time, like, she sort of, like, is put in, like, sort of a different, like, situation where she has to, like, I guess, like, act in a different way. She really, like, I guess, grows as like a character, which I really enjoyed. I think they played this out pretty well. And even, I also noticed the whole thing about her saying, not taking about the airbenders powers. And I was wondering if it was like, you could only really sort of like do it at like certain moments where like it was really like sort of justified. But I didn't even really think about the fact that if she could actually like technically do that part of that power anymore. So that's another, I guess, equation to sort of factor in, which I guess maybe we'll see that later on. I mean, maybe she'll like sort of like relearn it, which would be pretty interesting to see how that goes about if she has to do that, especially with, I guess the other enemy benders that are going to attack her pretty soon. So it would be pretty cool to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely just one of those weird things because, like, as far as we know, Aang just learned from the Lion Turtle how to take bending away, yet the ability he gives Korra is the ability to give people bending, so it's kind of like, wait, did you give her all energy bending or just this one technique? So it's definitely hard to know if this was specifically trying to like tell you something that like I don't have this ability anymore or what, but I'm not quite sure. To me, would be one of those things where like, why would Aang not give her this ability? This is an ability Aang has used twice to get out of like bad situations, Yukon and Ozai, so why wouldn't he give it to her? But apparently she can't do that anymore, but either way, I did like the fact that this really did show kind of how much Korra has grown as a character. Like, Book 1 Korra would have probably just flown up there, grabbed the guy, jumped down. This time around, you can tell that she knows kind of how he's feeling and knows that that's not the best way to handle it, that she has to talk to this guy, calm him down, and get him to kind of come with her, kind of, she like, he reaches his hand out and stuff like that. That needed to be the way that it went down, and that's what happened. Like, Book 1 Korra would not have kind of sat down, asked him, can I sit down here and have a chat? But that's what happened here, and a big moment of growth. That was interesting, and it was just nice to know Korra has no fear whatsoever of height, probably because she's such a powerful airbender now, and this other guy can airbend, and he's just like, don't move, please. So that was nice. But yeah. Next scene is that we have Raiko coming out, and he speaks up, complaining about the crises in the city that seem to happen daily at this point, and he demands that Korra leaves the city. And we think that Korra's going to be super mad, maybe start getting angry at Raiko, but she's not. It turns into a smile on her face, and she said that she was just about to leave anyway. And she says to Tenzin that she now knows what she needs to do, and she's going to travel the world, find the airbenders to help restore the Air Nation. And Tenzin agrees, and he's going to go along with her too. So this is our kind of like big kind of end to this episode for Korra. And I quite like that this was it, that Raiko banishes her from the city, which I feel was like a really bad move on his behalf, because Korra was basically the only person in the whole city who could do like anything really. Like, I assume most humans have like no relationship with spirits, and really only the people going on this journey to help find the airbenders are the only people who have ever communicated really with spirits. And especially when you have Korra, who kind of can do stuff. Maybe it's not all going right for her, but you'd rather have her there than not, and he's just going to apparently attempt to deal with this stuff by himself, as if Korra leaving is just going to stop issues happening or something like that. It's a really weird kind of moment from Raiko. It's just like, I hope this backfires on you and you're begging for Korra to come back at some point in this book, just so you'll kind of treat her with respect at some point. But and then Korra, that moment where you kind of wondering what she's feeling, and then it turns into a smile, and she knows that she wants to help restore the Airbenders. That's a really good moment, that she's kind of found her path kind of on her own, and because of what Raiko said to her, it was pretty nice. But Troy, your thoughts on this scene here?
Yeah, it definitely was interesting, like, getting Waco to banish Korra. I definitely think that part of that plays into, like, who he's listening to, because, like, even in the media when he says he's banishing Korra, like, they all, like, sigh or, like, what? Or, like, gasp. So it definitely shows that, like, Waco, he's angry and he's not, like, thinking, I guess, clearly, or the people he's listening to aren't thinking clearly. And it was pretty great. Like, I just hope that Korra, like, can go back to Republic City, just, like, in case there's something that needs to be done there, she can still go there. And it's just pretty interesting, like, getting to, like, see this, and just, Tenzin apparently going with Korra was pretty great. And I don't know, it's pretty interesting, like, who in Team Avatar can be in Republic City? Did Raiko, like, banish all of Team Avatar, or did he just banish Korra? Like, Mako's on the police force and seems to, like, have the respect of Raiko because of what happened in Peacekeepers. Despite Mako and Korra's dating, like, can Mako, like, what's Reiko's relationship with Mako? Like, how much of an insider is Mako into what's going on with Reiko? So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is interesting that if the whole team, like, I wouldn't expect him to, like, especially not Mako at least, but, like, I wouldn't expect him to sort of, like, ban the whole Team Avatar. That would seem kind of silly for him to do. I mean, even banishing the Avatar seems kind of silly. And I'm going to assume that, like, if something happens, some crisis happens, he's pretty much going to be begging her to come back, or at least the people will. Like, I couldn't see, like, Lin, like, not letting Korra back if something happens that she actually needs, like, help on. So I wouldn't suspect that there would be any real issue with that. But overall, I think the scene just plays out pretty well. You sort of, I guess you just see more, like, politicking from Raiko. Like, he's really trying to, like, be good, get in good with the people, which I'm pretty sure will backfire in the end. And Korra just handles it, like, pretty well. Like, she knows what she needs to do, so I think that's really good for her. She's definitely on the right path, I think.
This scene, it came as a shocker than as a relief, because it's one of those things where, as soon as he said it, I was like, whoa, were you crazy? And then I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, okay, good. We'll never have to see your stupid face again. Hopefully, when she comes back, he's either begging for her or he's already somewhere else and Gomu's president already. Like by the time they get back, they all rebel against him, and then anyone in Gomu is the president now, and Gomu was like, come in, we're all equal here, and everything's all good, and the spirits are all good. Or, they could come back, it's a complete mess and a disaster, which could totally happen, and at that point I wouldn't even care, because the people are kind of annoying too. They're like, and the press too, like, I'm just not liking the city anymore. Like, let's go to Ba Sing Se, let's go back into the Avatar world. I think they knew that too. I think they were just like, let's just leave this place alone, hope that they can fix their own dang problems. Like, we're just finished with them. So I actually really like that move. I'm just so glad they're going across the world now. I think that's so cool that they're going across the world, and they're gonna go try to find airbenders. It's a very different direction, and I'm so glad we're able to, like, leave those roots of the beginning of the show. That, like, it was all supposed to be, like, 12 episodes in this one little city, and now they're like, nope, we're tired of this city, let's go everywhere else. So I'm very happy about this. At first I was like, whoa, because I mean, like, that's, like, crazy that because Raiko's insane. And then I was like, okay, good.
Or as Callum would say, they're swapping one bad city for another because he hates Ba Sing Se.
Oh no, Ba Sing Se is horrible. No, I shouldn't say that. I just like when they were going around the world in general.
Yeah.
Ba Sing Se is like literally from. Actually, I don't even want to bring it up, but like in episode 3, something happened that made me think, whoa, North Korea kind of. So it's very. Yeah, I think it's a commentary on that, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The only thing that this scene made me really think of was something we talked about in the podcast. I suppose a couple of weeks ago. It's probably like over a month at this stage. But what sort of like legal / official role like should the Avatar have in the world at this point?
Mhm.
Because it is this kind of like ancient job effectively, and Korra seems to get like no respect. Like he's just treated as like, oh, that's like a spirit job. It's not a real one. I'm the president here. I can order you around. She gets ordered around by the Earth Queen in the third episode. Yet shouldn't she like have some sort of like authority in terms of her job is kind of predates all of theirs, even though she's like younger than most of the world leaders and stuff like that. Like there should be some form of kind of like official role for the Avatar in the world or something like that. Like a lot of people give the Avatar respect just because it is this ancient role, but it's nothing official. It's just them kind of respecting like spirituality in the Avatar. But yeah, we'll see. That's definitely something Korra hasn't got a lot of in this whole series. A lot of respect for what she does, only from like Tenzin and her friends primarily. But
Could I say something about the Avatar's role? I think if like one thing Korra could do, like since she's only going to be alive like at the most like a century more, probably less, one thing she could do like for the next Avatars is like in government she gets along with, like give the Avatar an official like role in government, like the Fire Lord like needs to listen to the Avatar, or the Avatar needs to approve a nation going to war. I just think like the Avatar, like Korra could do something with that. It is kind of getting repetitive, like all the nations the Avatar has to deal with and all the bad world leaders pretty much. So that's why I'm kind of glad with the group of villains that were chosen that they aren't world leaders. But something that, could be done to prevent that for like future series or for future books would like have one of Korra's legacy things being like giving the Avatar more of a political position.
yeah, Greg, Kelly, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, I agree because everyone hates her. Other than her friends. I'm like, she needs to somehow find a way to calmly establish, even if she doesn't like it, unfortunately, she needs to find a way to calmly establish some sort of decent relationship with government officials and ideas and get them to set the idea that the Avatar is always going to be around to try to set peace and that they should respect her to some degree. You know what I mean? Even if you can have like respectful, differences of opinion, like later, maybe with the next couple Avatars, but like the government's more like, oh, well, we hate you, we can do this on our own, that's what it's been so far, and she needs to find a way to establish some sort of compromise between them, because it's crazy. I mean, and if she doesn't do that, then this is the problem that Korra's gonna leave for her next Avatar, because so far that's been going out great.
Yeah.
Kyoshi leaving the Dai Li, Miroku leaving a war, Aang leaving all of this. It's like every Avatar causes a problem for the next Avatar, but it'll all get worked out eventually. Maybe Korra will be that one to finally just settle things a little bit. Be that Kuruk era. They're both the water Avatars.
Yeah.
Water suits everything.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty cool. Or even if she could set up like some sort of like organization, like sort of like the United Nations, where like there actually are like world leaders that actually like sort of do sit down, and she could somehow be on like sort of that council, which almost made me thought like when United Republic started and they did have like a member of each nation on a council, something sort of like that. But then we know we have Raiko now, so obviously nothing's going to be happening with the United Republic now. So, but I don't know, maybe there's some way she could form some sort of organization that would, sort of like govern things in some sense.
Yeah, I almost feel like Korra, or the Avatar just in general, should have some form of like command over like some level of the Order of the White Lotus or something like that. Because like if they look after her training, like a grown-up Avatar should be able to like use these guys to help her out in some ways if like other nations aren't helping out, because the whole point of that organization that like it doesn't have like the lines between nations or anything like that. It's not specific to any one thing and stuff like that. But yeah, they just seem to be their own organization that has some involvement in the training of the Avatar primarily. But yeah, we're going to get more information on Order of White Lotus. But speaking of them, at an isolated prison somewhere I assume it's in one of the mountain ranges near one of the air temples, just because of the kind of fog and stuff like that, the way it looks. The Order of White Lotus guards are going to give food to their prisoner, and it's an isolated prison cell, as I said, just one person in there, and his name is Zahir. They're on edge because this guy's clearly dangerous. When they open up the door, they say that Zahir asks them if they've read any poetry from the airbender guru Lahima, who lived 4,000 years ago, and he says that this guy unlocked the secret of weightlessness and lived his final 40 years without ever touching the ground. Then he talks about instinct and how basing your expectations on only what you see is blinding, and then he suddenly starts airbending and escapes from his prison cell, showing that he's effectively a master airbender. He's able to completely destroy these Order of White Lotus guards without too much trouble. And then he leaves saying that it's a new age, the era of the White Lotus and the era of the Avatar are over. And he jumps down the mountain. But Greg, your thoughts on this final scene of the episode?
This was pretty good. It was pretty crazy. Like, I mean, the whole transition into the scene from like just the previous scene where Tenzin is like, oh, I'm sure like a whole bunch of like, you know, great people or whatever are getting like the gift of airbending, whatever, and then we see this guy who gets airbending. So clearly we can see varying different type of people with ideas are going to be getting airbending with obviously not exactly, I guess, what you would think as the typical airbending philosophy, even though he clearly has actually studied actual airbending philosophy, which I thought was pretty interesting. I'm guessing he's been studying like air philosophy like even before he was in the prison, since it didn't look like he had anything in there or whatever. So it makes me think that him studying like air philosophy is probably why he could like pretty much is like a master airbender. Like he didn't seem like he had any issues doing like any of the movements. I mean, I'm sure he was like pretty dangerous as just like a normal human already, considering they had like 3 firebenders or earthbender there just sort of like guard him, just giving him like rice or whatever. So that was pretty interesting. I mean, the whole fight scene is really good. Like I really enjoyed it. It flowed pretty well, and just like his movements like overall are just like pretty crazy. So I really enjoyed the scene. It was a pretty good way to sort of like end the episode while introducing like one of the main villains we're gonna have. So I think they did a pretty good job with this one.
Yeah, this definitely presents like some pretty big questions. Like, yeah, where did he read this poetry? I assume the Order of White Lotus didn't just give it to him while he was in prison, so that does suggest that he had some interest in airbending or the culture beforehand, and just the way he seems to know it like so well that he can kind of almost quote it from memory, that 4,000 years ago this guy, why he mentions specifically the secret of weightlessness. Is this the airbender's special ability? Just you're able to like float basically. That would be interesting. But yeah, and then he does seem to have that sort of like philosophical kind of airbending kind of personality where he talks a lot about like instinct, expectations, and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, he clearly has some knowledge of airbending, like martial arts, based on the way he was moving around, lots of flipping and all this other sort of stuff. And yeah, you really do wonder what exactly his aim is. You know, why were they put in prison? What's his aim? Why does he want to get rid of the... I suppose you can understand the White Lotus. They've kept him in prison. He just wants revenge on them. But why the Avatar specifically, when he is kind of seems to be at least a kind of fairly philosophical person and understand some airbender kind of culture and stuff like that. But Kelly, what are your thoughts on Zahir and this final scene?
Yeah, this is really cool. The only question, I mean, I have a lot of questions, like their backstory, why they exist, why he's in prison if he only just learned how to airbend. Like, it's like, you can't do this, you're not a bender, and then I'm like, okay, he's not a bender, and he's in the middle of nowhere with a bridge that has to get all the way, they have to, like, bend the bridge to get over to him in a locked cage that they have to open up. I'm like, what is he? Like, I don't understand why he would need that much security if he doesn't know how to bend. I mean, I understand, so that's what my question is, like, can he do something else? Like, it's like, why was he in that tight of a prison if he didn't know how to bend? So, there's that, and how he knew the knowledge. I'm assuming he just knew all that stuff because he seems like one of those people that just like knows everything kind of thing. He's read the poetry and stuff, but like, what can he do to lead this group of benders if all of a sudden he's a bender now.
Yeah.
The fight scene was amazing. Very fluid, very like fun to watch. Him pushing all of the people into the prison and locking the prison. And and he's like, I hope you ration your rice. You're gonna be in here for 3 weeks. I'm like, those people are dead. Those White Lotus people are dead. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, really cool and interesting. Can I make a really weird complaint though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't care for his voice actor. I think he sounds overdramatic. And not like in a way where the character is overdramatic. Not like he's an overdramatic character. I'm not like, I don't know, something about it just didn't really, I'm like, okay, villainous voice. Like he just kind of says things in a way that are so, and then this and this and this, and then this and this and this. And this and this, you know. I mean, it could just totally be me. It's like my own personal opinion, but I feel as though like, okay, like I don't. It doesn't sound. I don't know, something about it. I just don't really care for it. Sorry, I know. I'm probably being a kind of a butt for saying that, but whatever.
Yeah. You asked us some good question. You know, how did this guy become the leader of such a crazy bending gang without any bending in the first place? And yeah, he clearly must be able to do something other than just, now that he's an airbender, to be put in such a crazy prison cell, because they all had, going into like the next episode a little bit, they all had super specific prisons where they were specific to their bending ability, and this guy was just out in the middle of nowhere. Like, how could he escape if he didn't just suddenly develop bending? And yeah, there's just a way, you can definitely tell that these guys are villains just with the way they kind of treat the other White Lotus guards, that, you know, he locks them up in prison, and yeah, they're potentially dead, and then, like, I think Ming Hua in the, like, next episode basically kills 2 other White Lotus guards, because they must fall into lava, basically, but, yeah, these guys are crazy, but, Troy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good scene. As far as, like, as I hear his voice, it definitely does seem like too high pitched. Like he seems like a much older character, and yet his voice is like he's a young adult. But I do like his character development and how it goes. Like he's like the classical, like read all the books about emotion, but he hasn't actually like felt the emotions. Like he can like recite the words, but he doesn't like quite know how to apply them. I thought was a pretty interesting take on him. And I like the White Lotus guard and like the way he is, just like a lot of the White Lotus guys have just like been really like serious and not had a lot of emotion, but the White Lotus guy who brings him the food is pretty great about like, did you pick that up somewhere? I thought it was like a pretty interesting thing. And then yeah, rationing the food for 3 weeks, like a bowl of rice, was pretty interesting. And the location then, you know, it's pretty difficult for a non-bender to escape from that location. Yeah, I really like the pillar things. Reminds me of the Aang and Ozai kind of fight they had with those like pillars, except those ones are brown and these ones are like white. But I think, yeah, Zahir is definitely an interesting villain.
Yep, and that brings the episode to an end. So yeah, just I suppose you guys have any final thoughts on the episode, Greg?
I mean, I just thought that it played out pretty well, and I think it's definitely like, it was a good episode, and it really like piqued my interest. I mean, I think it piqued everyone was like really excited for this, and I think it did a pretty good job of introducing it, and like even like, I mean, when I was like watching the live stream or whatever, I think it like flowed even pretty well into the next episode. Like I almost didn't notice like the transition, so I think it did pretty good as like a part 1 of 2 parts, so I really enjoyed it.
And how do you feel it compared against the premieres of the first episodes of Book 1 and 2 before?
I think for me, it was better than Book 2. For Book 1, I guess that one just sort of had the whole like hype of, you know, being the new episode of like the new series and whatnot. So it's a bit hard to compare to that, but I think it definitely worked better for me than Book 2. So it did pretty well.
And what about you, Troy? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think it was interesting. Like, they set up kind of Breaker as being a villainous person, but this guy's like the villain and he's at the end of the story. So it's definitely an odd first episode, and like, I guess kind of like Welcome to Republic City, how Amon was at the end of the episode. And then with Rebel Spirit, it was interesting, just like Unalaq, I guess was pretty obviously a bad guy. So yeah, I think that was definitely a low, opening. But this one definitely does play up what happened at the book 2 finale and how it kind of flows into this opening, just kind of the results of harmonic convergence I felt was pretty good. Not quite as exciting as a series opener, but actually better than a series opener.
And Kelly, your final thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, the way Troy worded that is basically how I feel. It's definitely like not necessarily like the most exciting stuff to happen, like that big spirit attacking in the beginning of season 2. That was a really, really cool thing to happen, and but at the same time, you also had weak elements about this with that. With this, there was really no weak elements. Like it was all pretty amazing stuff, despite not necessarily being that exciting and not really feeling necessarily like an opener. Like this is opening, other than the airbending, I guess, of course. But I mean, we already knew about the airbending, so I guess we weren't all that like, other than like the reactions to the airbending, we weren't all whoa about it. But so it doesn't necessarily feel like an opener, but it's definitely a great episode, and the way it sets everything up is really great, and I can't wait to see the rest of it. Like, honestly, I'm loving the way this book is going. I'm honestly loving it.
Yeah. For me, this is probably my favorite, like, first episode of a book of Korra so far, for two reasons. One, because it, unlike book 1 going into book 2, there was direct continuation from the events of the finale of the previous book, playing in with the opener of this book, and that worked really well. There was a few mentions of harmonic convergence, what had just happened, and it helped that it was just, a few weeks ago as opposed to 6 months, and so there was obvious connections to make. And then just the writing, I think you can tell, was just a lot kind of tighter on this episode, and I think it's the same for the next 2 episodes as well that we've seen. Overall, just really good opening episode. Had like nice setup at the end, and I just loved it. But yeah, that's the end of our roundtable for K301, a breath of fresh air. We will be back tomorrow, Sunday, with our roundtable for K302 Rebirth, and I think Callum will be joining us for that one as well, so we'll have another host on. But yeah, we'll cover that one tomorrow, and then the Earth Queen we're going to cover next week when the show is actually taking a break, so that will allow us to catch up. But yeah, that's been the podcast. If you want to send in any thoughts on these episodes that we can maybe mention at the start of our next podcast or something like that, just send them into the email address avataronlinepodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, that's been myself, Troy, Kelly, and Greg. Thanks for listening to this podcast, and bye.
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 Bye-bye.